Be here now. Just be here now.
Welcome to the CSM podcast with David Nichtern. Creativity, spirituality, and making a buck. Blending spiritual and temporal realities, joining heaven and earth. We will be talking with a variety of manifestors, individuals who have, in one way or another, clarified their vision, created an offering, and brought that offering to the marketplace. Let's see what we can learn from them as we each move forward towards solving our own life puzzle, facing the challenge of living in the spirit, in the body, in the world, in this time. If you're interested in supporting the CSM podcast, please visit BeHereNowNetwork.com/David.
You know, we are brainwashed to think that the value of success means how much money did it make, how many people came, and how much positive feedback did it get. Now, the actual truth of the value of a project is how much learning was there, how much intimacy was there with the people, how much joy was there, how much service was it to the planet, how much, did the real values that fulfill us get fulfilled.
Hello, and welcome back to the Creativity, Spirituality, and Making a Buck podcast with David Nichtern on the Be Here Now Network. My name is Michael Cammers, David's student and your host. I have the good fortune of setting the table here for us in our intro on episode number 23, featuring the accomplished musician, filmmaker, and teacher, Jamie Catto. As you may suspect from the excerpt of Jamie we started this episode with, he really embodies the three threads of creativity, spirituality, and right livelihood that we explore on this show, and we are excited to share this conversation with you. Be Here Now listeners may be familiar with Jamie already as the director of Becoming No One, the documentary released in 2020 that explores the arc of Ram Dass's life and teachings. Perhaps others of you may be familiar with Jamie's musical projects such as Faithless and One Giant Leap. Fortunately, David and Jamie really hit it off in this episode with a really honest, fun, and vulnerable conversation spanning all these highlights and sharing their individual journeys with each other, which, as you will see, have some surprising overlap. Also, bonus points to Jamie for eliciting the largest belly laugh from David in CSM pod history. And now, Jamie and David.
So, first of all, welcome, Jamie, to the Creativity, Spirituality, and Making a Buck podcast. Just
Thank
for
you for having me.
Well, for your reference, that title is the title of a book that I wrote, and it seems so synchronous with your offering. So I thought we could sort of move around through those three territories. And I'm tempted to ask you, creativity, spirituality, and making a buck. Pick two. If you could only pick two,
funny,
what would you pick?
Creativity, spirituality, and making a buck. Pick two. That means I've got to drop one. I would say creativity and making a buck, and don't worry about spirituality because that takes care of itself.
So
That's the ego doesn't get involved in that stuff.
But we do share, the notion of actually doing trainings and workshops with people. I'm a Buddhist teacher, and we're also musicians. So I listened to some of your music. I thought I could start there, if you don't mind.
I'd love to. Yeah, please.
Yeah. There was one album, which is These Are My Diamonds by The Happening.
Oh, I love that record. Yeah.
Yeah, that leapt out at me, and for a couple of reasons. One tune in particular, which is "Oh My Heart," I thought would be a nice one to play at my memorial service.
Yeah, it's a sad one.
Yeah.
We called it "Oh My Heart" because it's so sad that when you listen to it, you go, "Oh my heart." That's why we called that.
Yeah, and I was wondering, I don't know, are you playing some of the instruments on there? Are you composing?
On and off. I'm more composing and directing. It's a wonderful project that's happening. It's like, I love making film music. 3/4 of all the music I listen to is film music.
Uh-huh.
I love Morricone. I love Alberto Iglesias. I love the great film scorers. And yet I'm not great at doing film scores for other directors. When someone hires me to score something, I'm not really interested to do it how someone else wants me to do it. I never have been. So, but I still love making that kind of beautiful improvised music. So I started this project called The Happening, which is like making film scores for movies that don't exist. So I gather together a group of master musicians, come up with a theme, and I start telling a story, and we've all plugged in live. And as I start, this is the bit where they're saying goodbye to each other on the train platform, and they don't know if they're going to see. And then all the clarinets creep in and the strings, and everybody starts playing and improvising. Every track is only played once and improvised once, but they're such great musicians that they always nail it. And then we edit it a bit at the end. And we just make a beautiful film score for a movie that doesn't exist. And they all have very different themes.
That's a great byline. Film scores for movies that don't exist.
Yeah. And they're some of the best albums I've ever made. They take 5 days. It's like health camp for musicians, because they don't need to worry about the charts. They don't need to worry about making it okay for Elton John or whoever they usually play with. They're just doing it to really express their mastery and their enjoyment and being in love with their instrument. And so I rent, or someone gives me a beautiful house. Sometimes we pay for the family to go on holiday somewhere, take their house, turn it into a recording studio, make their main room the live room, and and have beautiful catering. And for 5 days, we just eat well, tell each other our stories, play music all day. And at the end of 5 days, we mix whatever we have.
And so is the music composed? Are there any kind of orchestrations or charts, or people are just improvising?
All just playing by ear.
Because there were quite well articulated melodies and sections delineated. It didn't sound like a kind of a jam session.
Well, sometimes we'll play it once and then we'll go, that was good, let's just do that again. And at this moment, when I give this signal, everyone do this, and then we do it again. Those are the delineations.
It had a flavor that reminded me of there's a sort of if I could say, a kind of Jewish feeling to it.
Yeah, well, it's the theme for These Are My Diamonds was set in it's like a story about the Second World War in Russia. It's also got a pirate theme that goes on during it as well. But it was funny because that was the second Happening album, and I was in Berlin, and a family had hired me to run an intimacy workshop for them and their friends. They were a very wealthy family, and over dinner after the workshop, they were asking me, how's your music going? Like, what have you done since One Giant Leap? And I started telling them about different projects, and I started telling them about The Happening. And the guy goes, wow, when you started telling me about The Happening, your eyes really came alive. Like, I can really see how much you love that. Would you like to do one in my mansion in Berlin? I'll pay for all the musicians to come. I'll fund the whole thing. I said, yeah, I would love to. So they gave us their house and paid for all the musicians to come and catering and everything like that. And the second one, and he said, my wife is a singer, but she very rarely with the kids now gets to sing with really great musicians. So I'd really appreciate it if she could sing on a few of the tracks. And she was a beautiful person who had a beautiful voice. I said, absolutely wonderful. So we did this session. And at the end of the week, it had been so heartfelt. And so we'd all fallen in love with each other incredibly during the 5 days we were all playing. And I said to her, isn't it so beautiful? Your husband is so, wealthy, and he could get you anything, that he knows you so well that the gift is this quite expensive week-long music session. And she looked at me, she put her hand on her heart and gestured to the room full of leads and amplifiers and music. She looked at me, she went, these are my diamonds.
Oh, that's where the title came from.
Yeah, then I thought, that's the title.
Oh, very nice. It's a beautiful album. And it also reminds me a little bit, well, first of all, I'm sort of Russian and Polish Jewish. So it landed right in the middle of my, kind of sensibility. And I guess in that regard, something about it reminded me a little bit of Leonard Cohen. Are you a Leonard Cohen fan at all?
I'm more of a fan of him than I am of his music. Like I love his vibe. I haven't listened to a lot of the production in his music, especially the sort of slightly childish backing vocals. I don't find that easy on my ear. The actual production of his stuff, but him,
right. Yeah,
I absolutely love. Yeah, there's a track on These Are My Diamonds where I cover a Tom Waits song. I sing a version of The World Is Green, And then there's another track on it, which is just the after dinner prayers music that my grandfather and family used to sing on Friday nights. You know that song? La 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 la.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I just always felt such a connection to that melody. So I just started singing it, and everyone started creeping in, and we did a really beautiful, gentle version of that piece as well, which is called A Certain Prayer, I think is what we ended up calling it. And we all started crying at the end. It got quieter and quieter. And some of the musicians who were playing it and singing it were like German, blonde-haired, blue-eyed descendants of Nazis, basically. Oh. And we were doing it in a house right in the middle of Berlin. So everyone felt like we kind of opened up this kind of healing portal, and everyone started crying on the last note of A Certain Prayer. The guitarist and the keyboard player and me, we were all on the floor because we go lower and lower as it gets quiet. The way that we make quieter and louder is going closer to the floor or higher up. And we were all like with our heads right down on the floor, and we all just started weeping together that we had done this in Berlin. And could you imagine 80 years ago? You know what I mean? It felt so healing and powerful for us.
And what instruments do you play? Is there one instrument that's your favorite to play when you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I play acoustic guitar, and secondarily I play piano and drums and sing. I play enough to compose. So the one you like, the Oh My Heart, I kind of wrote that on the guitar very badly, and then I get one of the master musicians to play it properly.
Wonderful. So, one can't help but notice about you that you're very multifaceted. And that's sort of the theme or thread of the podcast and of our community. We have a community called Dharma Moon, and there's a lot of artists and people in it, but everybody's meditating, and it's sort of got a Buddhist backbone, spine. There's a lot of, meditation training that's part of it. But we're trying to open that portal up so that it sort of mixes gracefully with everyday life, with business, with creative expression. So our motto is that, that spiritual development and creative expression and everyday mastery of everyday life have equal weight.
Yes, that's very much. My school in England, which is called the School for the Insanely Gifted, is exactly the same, pretty much exactly the same model.
Yeah, I can see that in your website that there's a. So, do you feel at times torn between three lovers?
No, I find it really strange that I get asked this so much by journalists. Like, I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't do it that way. Like, why would you only do one thing? I mean, like, do one thing and do it lots of times, but there's plenty of space in the day to try out making a movie. There's plenty of space in the day to parent a child. There's plenty of space in the day to develop a digital app that you think might be interesting. Like, why not just anytime you have a good idea, start it off, see what kindles? I mean, of course, out of every idea I have, out of every 100 ideas, 5 will actually kindle. But just, chuck them all in the frying pan and to see, because, sometimes they just kindle by themselves so easily, that, if you've got like a vision, if you can articulate what you want, you don't actually have to do that much, most of it is if you've got a cool team of people, everyone's doing their thing, everyone's getting an equal share of the money at the end. So everybody's like personally invested. And you have such a beautiful, intimate, connected, enjoyable time. The money isn't the top thing. I mean, we all hope it makes money. But when we make it only about it's only a success if it makes money, then that usually sabotages it. So we hope it makes money. But we have such a good time with each other and fulfill ourselves in all our other values of, was it good for the world? Did it do any service? Did we learn? Were we intimate? Were we joyful? All the actual values of life that are fulfilling, that that whether it did make money or didn't make money at the end, it was still time well spent.
That, of course, is a vision statement of its own. And then, the conventional wisdom is if you don't focus on something, and you spread yourself thin, that sometimes the various elements of it don't thrive. That's the conventional point of view. I'm with you. I'm much more coming from the same perspective, but it does come down then to integration and sort of, handling the business end of something clearly. It's interesting, like Krishna Das, who I mentioned that I, produce his records and play guitar with him, actually handles the business that they do very cleanly. It's an interesting part. They don't make a big deal about it, but you don't get the feeling of like, wait a minute, you said this and that's happening, and what happened to this and what happened to that. So there is a model there, I think, for doing creative work with a good business alignment, but don't you have to pay some attention to it? I mean,
you do your absolute best to make it thrive. Absolutely do my best. But like the way it's happened for me is like you do all your work over here and you think that that's where it's going to come from. And then the big breakthrough comes from over there. Like you try your best, but it never comes out the way. Like every single time I've got a big budget to do something, I was always, and I talk about this in my project masterclass. Like I have a workshop called "What About You? Bring Your Dream Project into the World." It's one of my flagship workshops, and I can say this with my hand on my heart. Not once, every single time that I've got a big budget for something, I've never been in the meeting I was supposed to be in. I've never once gone into the meeting to get the money and got the money that I was supposed to get from that meeting. Not ever once in my career. Not once. No, I'm not saying rarely. I'm saying never. Every single time someone gave me a big hunk of money for something, I was there for something else, and that's how God seems to work.
Yeah, I mean, try teaching that in school. That's going to be tricky, but we talk about tendril. Do you know the Buddhist concept of tendril or auspicious coincidence?
I think I can imagine.
Yeah, that's a big
start with
topic.
The right attitude. It probably sounds like the law of attraction. You come with the right attitude and you're doing it in the service of God, then I trust that God is going to make the things kindle that God wants to kindle that week. It's not up to me. It's like when I teach a workshop, I don't have an agenda that you're going to break through and have a big life change. That would be really arrogant and like using your process for me to feel good about myself as a teacher. I make a beautiful banquet of food. It's up to the souls to decide who comes and who eats and how much they eat and whether they leave at lunchtime or have 3 bowls full. It's none of my business. My job is to make the beautiful food. Whether God decides that the whole world is going to hear about it or just one person listen to it at the traffic lights and change their life, it's just not our business. Yeah, and the moment we start getting into the effect, the moment we start getting into the fruits, the output, then who are we doing that for? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of selfish. It's like using the people in the workshop so I can feel good about myself as a teacher. It's the same with projects. We are brainwashed to think that the value of success means how much money did it make, how many people came, and how much positive feedback did it get. Now, the actual truth of the value of a project is how much learning was there, how much intimacy was there with the people, how much joy was there, how much service was it to the planet, how much, did the real values that fulfill us get fulfilled. If we only concentrate on the money, for example, then I look at making a project as a devotional act. The project isn't, it's like having a child. The child's not there to get you something. You're there to give to the child. And it's the same with a project. The project is this incredible thoroughbred horse. My job is to groom it, keep it clean, give it the best oats it can have, which might be the best mixing engineer, the best manager, just give it the best I can possibly give it with the resources that I have. If I'm going there saying the only reason that this is worth doing for money, what I'm doing is I'm taking that thoroughbred horse and I'm saddling it like a donkey to carry my money worries up the hill or to carry my self-esteem worries up the hill. And that's not its job. That's not being devotional. That's using the project to get something. And I just don't believe in that. I was very moved by the book Autobiography of a Yogi, where Paramasanda Yogananda just puts himself in God's hands. He gets on a train and he just says, all right, I believe that I'm here to serve you. Like, I'll just show up. I'm leaving the rest to you, send the people. And that's what I've done, like with my workshop business. I don't really do nearly any advertising. I post on Facebook, something's happening. I don't even put a link because when you put a link there, the algorithm takes it out of everybody's feed. So I don't even put a link to the event. I just say, hey, Insanely Gifted is happening in September, or the Corfu event is free. And always someone donates something that probably made more money than if I'd actually charged. That's kind of the way it goes. I've had plenty of times where, I did a big project and you'd think it would make lots of money, like One Giant Leap. We got nominated for 2 Grammys. We sold 500,000 albums. We blah, 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 blah. I've never seen a penny of royalties from One Giant Leap, not a single penny since we did it. But while I was doing One Giant Leap, I wrote a song for Dido, who happened to be the backing vocalist in one of our other groups. And that one afternoon of work made me more than $500,000 just from having a track on her album that sold 16 million copies. So like, who knows where it's going to come from? That the money I should have made from One Giant Leap to support my family for 5 years came from one song, one afternoon, instead of that whole project that took me 3 years of my life. It's a mystery. Don't even try and work it out. Just keep showing up generously, following your enjoyment. That's what I believe. And be of service, like love, serve, remember, love what you're doing. Try and have an element of service in it. Be generous. Like my business is 100% inclusive. We have a ticket price for the workshop, but if you can't afford it, you're welcome to come anyway. So I hope you pay, but I'm not making you paying a prerequisite for you being there. And then enough people will pay. And then someone else at the end will come and chuck $1,000 in your pocket just because they were so blown away and they're loaded. And then it just kind of all added up in the end. That's been my experience, but I can't, say that. You have to really, really commit to it. You have to really jump into God's hands,
Yeah. Abandon all hope of fruition. That's a Buddhist slogan. Sort of similar.
Totally. It's so many different, whenever you do any projects, you're rolling 1,000-sided dice. The amount of different chaotic things that have to happen for something to fly, even if you have a massive marketing budget, is a mystery. So-and-so liked it. They were in a good mood that day. They sing so-and-so. They heard it while they drank their tea. They decided to play it. Someone else liked it. It's chaos theory times a million. You just don't know who could have thought that Norah Jones doing a lounge jazz album was going to scoop 12 Grammys and be the biggest album for 5 years. A lounge jazz album, they would have laughed you out the room if anyone, for the idea that a lounge jazz album, which basically sounds like the Girl from Ipanema reworked 12 times, was suddenly going to become the biggest thing that ever happened. It's just a total mystery.
Well, I can relate to this, Jamie, because I wrote a song called Midnight at the Oasis.
There you go. That's probably that was half your adult life.
That was an evening on a waterbed with a beautiful friend. Probably 20 minutes to write this song. So I think,
and it supported you for decades, no?
Yeah, indeed. And as I visited with Lenny Waronker, who produced that record, and I gave him some Japanese tea cups, and with a haiku that said, thanks for financing my Buddhist education.
Exactly. So total mystery. Like when I did the second One Giant Leap, we spent a small fortune doing that project. The first one cost $100,000.
Wow.
That was nothing. The second one, I had been asked by Annie Lennox to direct her videos. And so I've been working with her and going to the studio and everything. And she said, you've got to go and meet my manager, Simon Fuller. Typical Jamie, does no due diligence, doesn't know that Simon Fuller is the biggest mogul in entertainment who runs X Factor and Pop Idol and the Spice Girls. And I just thought, he's Annie's manager. So I show up at his place. He doesn't take external meetings. So when I went in, and it was like, who's this guy going to see Simon? And so Simon, the first thing he says to me, he's beautiful, such a cool guy. He goes, we're not doing the videos. I'm so sorry, but Annie has upset Clive Davis by releasing the picture of herself with no makeup on as her album cover after they especially told them they didn't want it. They've cut her video budgets. I'm sorry, we won't be able to do it. But what are you doing with the next One Giant Leap? And I was like, I wasn't pitching. I was just like, oh God, we don't want another record deal again. It's like a bank with the worst interest rate in the world. We just want a backer, our genius, their money, 50-50. I think that's how it should work. And he went, yeah, that's interesting. You see that guy through the glass over there? That's my head of accounts. Go and show him some of your numbers. The next day they gave me $3 million.
What a great story.
Yeah, that's how it works. It's like you just...
Well, you're connected to some kind of flow state. And I'm curious, Lakshmi,
the Lakshmi flow state.
Lakshmi. Okay. I was going to
thanking Lakshmi.
I was going to get that specific about it, but of course, since we also know each other through the Ramdas Maui retreats, and since you, directed and produced "Becoming Nobody," which is, probably one of the more recent summaries of his phenomenal existence, and since he's such a special connection, would you consider yourself a bhakti? Would that be fair to say? Is bhakti devotional? Is devotion the sort of gateway for you into the spiritual realm?
I'd never thought of it that way, but that is how I am with my daughters. I got 3 daughters. It's the most important thing in my world. The making Becoming Nobody was an act of devotion. It was just an act of thank you. I love you. I want to make the endless bottle of medicine that is Ram Dass available forever, so anyone can watch that movie. I imagine, like in the year 2762, people will be on a little spaceship to a retreat in Neptune, and they'll go, "Hey, let's all get retro and take acid and watch the Ram Dass movie." Like it's available once you've made something and finished it. It's available forever. As long as people can watch movies, they can watch that movie. And I just wanted to. I made all my projects, including that one, I made totally selfishly. I wasn't kind of making it. It was kind of devotional. Can one be devotional and totally selfish at the same time? It's a funny paradox, but it was like, it was my pleasure. It was like, I wanted to do because I thought it needed to be done. For me, it's like giving money to charity is kind of still a selfish act. Yeah. But like Anthony DeMello says, let's just say we've got great taste in our selfishness. My pleasure was for that to exist, for everyone to get how funny and menschy Ram Dass is, because none of his other movies are funny. They're all deep, but they're not funny. And for me, it's his cute, irreverent, sacred foolness that is my big turn on with him. He's naughty, he's Captain Mischief. Yeah. And I love that about him. And I'm like that as well. I'm an agent of chaos in my life, which has not always helped me. But I like disruption. I like what Jenny Holzer, the word artist in New York, said. She said, spit a mouthful of milk over someone if you want to learn something about their personality fast. So sort of very compassionate disruption.
Yeah, chaos. Well, that film also has some interesting aspects to it, which different people I'm sure tune into different parts of the work that you're doing. But what I found intriguing is he's talking, and then you're showing footage of other situations. That it's almost like the illustrated man. You're illustrating what it is he's talking about. And you're choosing. One time it's a little cartoon, and one time it's just maybe some street event that's happening. Yeah, and I found that really like counterpoint. But really, really great choices. I thought that was my opinion was that in itself made a little bit of a movie within the movie of just what you chose to show while he was speaking about things. It was kind of, allegorical or metaphorical and visual.
Trying to back up the essence of what he's saying and not the literality.
Yeah. And, you got to be with him right before he passed away? When's the last time you saw him?
I was blessed to be with him quite a few times. First, when I was like in my very early 20s, when my girlfriend was pregnant, like about 27 years ago, all the way through the first One Giant Leap. He generously contributed, let me interview him for the first One Giant Leap around the millennium. Then he was in the second Giant Leap in 2008. Then we hung out a bit more at some of his retreats. And then finally at the end, just before, it wasn't actually, the interview was done about 5 years before he passed. Because it's funny you say about the imagery in the movie, because the rest of the movie, the music and him talking and his parts, I almost edited that that was done in 2015. That part was easy. I knew all the best stories. I've been such a fanatical Ram Dass fan. I knew many of the bits I wanted to use, really early on. The thing that took time was visually making the shots so that it didn't just look like a glorified YouTube video with flowers opening and clouds rushing and how could we make it actually like a movie, feel. And that was what took 5 years, was finding all the shots affordably.
It's non-linear. It's not like this looks like that in a literal way. It's sort of, as you said, that you're capturing the kind of flavor of it. So we did 5 times. You did what, 5 times?
I cut the film and started again 5 different times, all because of the visuals, because I couldn't find a way to make it special. And the poor, I didn't go over budget at all, but I went over time budget. You know, we never had a deadline, but poor Raghu had to keep going back to the Ramdas board saying he's starting it again. And then I did a cut, which was just pictures of my daughters, and I loved it, but no one else got it. You know, I did all these different cuts, and it was also affordably, because, you know, the movie was very, very inexpensive. So 3/4 of all the shots you see were free off free websites, you know, and I would put the word out to all the camera people I knew and say, look, I need shots of these things, people hugging, people looking sad, people I need all your shots. And they would, like, all these people contributed different shots. You know, there's all my friends saying, oh, you can use, I shot this at the Kumbh Mela a few years ago. How about this shot here? Oh yeah, thanks. You know, like, everyone was donating shots very generously, you know. It was a real mishmash of beg, borrowing, and stealing images.
Yeah. So you used a lot of public domain footage?
Tons and tons.
And
those animations are public domain.
It's sort of stunning, the footprint of Ramdas, you know, even among people who wouldn't have grown up with him. Like, there's whole new generations of millennials that there's some mojo there that has kind of got longevity to it.
Yeah, he's the Mozart of what he does. You know, that's why, you know, that's why people still listen to Mozart today, hundreds of years. You know, like, he is the boom. You know, there's no one who says it deeper or more poignantly or more clearly than he does. You know, whatever subject you're talking about, he'll say something, and there's nothing really else to add. You know, he just gets the root underneath it, and it's just like, yeah, you said it. You know, that says it. You know, like the crochet story that ends the movie. When you hear the crochet story, it's almost like the whole of everyone's spiritual path and the whole point of spirituality is encompassed in that story. Once you hear the crochet story, there's almost nothing. There's always nothing to add. You know what I mean? Like, he just nails it. And I know that as long as people are on spiritual path, I mean, the whole now lineage, the present moment lineage, which is the great lineage. I always teased Ramdas because he had just done the Eckhart Tolle thing. And I always thought, when Eckhart Tolle had all that success with the power of now, like, if Ramdas was, like, thinking about suing him. So when we were talking, I was like, I saw your conversation with your great disciple, Eckhart Tolle, who took all your moves, and he was laughing because he knew it was true. And he must have thought, because, you know, there were times at the end of Ramdas's life where they really had to take the hat around to still afford his house and all his carers. You know, they were not rolling in money the way Eckhart Tolle is. And I know there was
Tammy Simon introduced the two of them for that lecture series that they did together. And she had a great line. She said, here's what we got on this stage now, a whole lot of now. That was a really good line.
I love Tammy.
A whole lot of now.
Absolutely adore. Tammy Simon is such a wonderful being. I absolutely love her. But I'm like, you know, props to Ramdas that, you know, he was the first one to do the now thing a good 30, 40 years before The Power of Now was written. And, you know, like, I think that, you know, like, he must have sometimes thought, fucking hell.
Yeah. It's sweet in a way that
it's like there was a great project called Playing for Change, which were these people.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Well, it's basically not a rip-off, but a kind of a copy of One Giant Leap, where we went around the world.
I see why you would think that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they made a fortune. You know what I mean? And we were a little bit like, "You're welcome." Did anybody ever say, you know, we were influenced by this? Sometimes that's never. The fans all did. The fans were like, having One Giant Leap, this is what they did. But Playing for Change never once acknowledged anything. No.
Well, I wonder how Buddha would feel 2,500 years later.
At the end of the day, our ideas are not ours. Let's be real. You know, it's an ego trip. The truth is we get very precious about that was my idea. But what did you do to generate that idea? Nothing. It popped into your head. Who gave it to you? Lakshmi, God, whoever knows. So, like, you can't really take ownership That's why when someone comes up and goes, "Oh, that album you made, it's changed my life," it's like you always feel sheepish about it because you know you didn't really do it. You received it. I did a little thing last night for the Love Serve Remember Foundation. They do their online satsang.
Yeah, I've done one of those. It's beautiful the way they handle it so beautifully. I thought
so lovely. I did it last night at 1 a.m, my time.
Right,
It was
it's
called
8 o'clock.
Power of Yin.
Power of Yin.
Yeah, and it's all about how we receive our music. We receive, we make ourselves available for the muse. We make ourselves available for our spirituality, but we don't do it. We don't generate it with our yang, getting busy. We surrender and we listen and we're curious, yin qualities, and we receive a song. We receive a great idea. We receive a spiritual awakening. It's all receptive. It's the yin is where all the action is.
Well, what do you think the purpose of the yang is then?
To put into action what you've received and manifest it on earth. So the yin feminine goes, "Oh, this is what we need to do. We need to go over there." That's the yin, gets the inspiration, then says to the masculine yang, "Pack up the car and lead us all over there. Buy the hammer and the nails and make one of these." So the yang kind of brings into form what the yin has decided. The masculine does what the girl says.
Have you noticed among our millennial friends that these characterizations are being challenged as we speak?
Yes, we have. In my teaching, in the Insanely Gifted School, we don't use the word masculine and feminine, yin and yang anymore.
That's interesting. More receptive and active, or something like that.
We just say active and receptive, or whatever. The use of the will, or the use of the receptiveness, or the curiosity. We don't, because but it's actually very interesting because there's yin yang, and then there's wu qi. Like in Taoism, there's the super void within which it all sits. Yeah. And it's almost like the yin yang dissolving into the wu qi is what's happening with the binary, non-binary sexuality movement. Is that it's all kind of becoming one thing now, which is a good thing. I mean, I don't believe that everything has to be non-binary. I know certain people that say, "Oh, masculine, feminine, it's all a construct." Well, it's not only a construct, because certain people who are trans, they go through a very, they go through a very, very extreme operation to have their genitals changed to be either a masculine or feminine. So it's like, it obviously means something to them. I don't think you can dismiss it. If it didn't mean anything, then why would these people go through such an intense operation to go from one to the other? Obviously there's a difference. So I don't think one should dismiss it and say that everyone has to be non-binary. Like if you want to be in your heteronormal masculine and feminine reality, great. And if you're exploring non-binary, great. But none of them are right or wrong. Just do the one that is meaningful to you in your life. There's 7 billion human experiments going on concurrently on this planet, including murderers, thieves, rip-off artists, estate agents, people who are, extraordinary. I mean, I do find the whole thing a little bit extraordinary. Why there are so many Muggles? That's my one question for God.
Okay, let's get her on the phone, and you can ask your question.
Thank you. I would like to know. I understand that there has to be all these different, but why have consciousness and the joy of the potential of consciousness and awakening and love and connectedness and surrender and all the amazingness that is available in all that world, why have it as so niche? I understand it can't be everything, but why make it such a slither of experience and have 97% of the people going through life like a zombie thinking that materialism is important? And why is it so weighed so massively in that way? Is a big mystery to me. That's the one mystery. Well, there are many, but it's a huge mystery for me. Why so many Muggles? Why Muggles, but why the proportions seem totally out of control.
There's obviously a bunch of different perspectives on what a Muggle is or isn't. Things like, does that person have Buddha nature, bodhicitta? Do they have the potentiality for? I
mean, everyone does. But
that's a powerful. Then they're not just a Muggle at that point.
Well, they are if they never ever know about their Buddha nature. Their experience of this lifetime is a Muggle experience. I'm not saying that's what they are, but most of the people on this planet are in survival mode. They're not thinking about awakening. They're thinking about lunch.
Well, while you're on that topic, lately I've been watching animal shows, documentaries, because there are many, many more beings that are in animal bodies, obviously, on this planet than in human bodies. And when you watch what they're into, you want to talk about survival mode. I watched this little hamster running across a desert of snakes that were just trying to basically eat it, wrapping themselves around.
Amazing. That was the BBC.
Yeah. Have you seen that?
What an amazing shot with the music. Took wildlife to a new dimension, that sequence. Phenomenal.
But you look at countless beings that are just really in survival mode.
Yeah.
So, I wrote a book about the 6 realms. I don't know if you've ever looked at that topic, but it's a Buddhist, the Wheel of Life. And so there's the human realm and the animal realm and the hungry ghosts and the hell realm beings and the gods and the jealous gods. And it's really a portrait of karma and how these things get, how you end up in a particular situation, in a particular realm. And the premise is everybody's working through things over kind of a fairly long arc. But that it is a trap. There is a sense that even the God realms are a trap, a kind of golden trap. But the animals, just looking at them surviving and going, well, wait a minute, we have part of that makeup too.
Yeah.
Everybody. Don't you have a survival? Do you have a survival mode?
Massively, especially in relation, all my dharma, like most of my trauma and kind of like struggle of my life is in my relational world. That's where I'm a hungry ghost. My primal wounding, that I won't bore you about the patterning of what happened when I was in the womb and in adolescence and in my childhood life, but the patterns were set for a very sort of dysfunctional and empty experience of quite a lot of re-traumatizing through my relational life. So that's where all my action is of self-soothing and playing out stuff that hurts.
And now you have 3 daughters, and you must have done a lot of work on your relational portfolio.
Still going strong, baby. Still processing a breakup from 3 months ago that still feels like a huge kick in the heart.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a mystery. I do have some questions. I do ask the holy light bulb. I have some questions about all that. I show up very devotionally, but I have definitely recreated certain aspects of repetitive neglect and deceit and all the things that were going on when I was small. It's a big mystery for me, but less of a mystery. I really do engage with the inquiry around all that. That's a big part of my that's where the challenges and the struggle of my human existence has mainly been centered.
So maybe the title of your next album could be Even Muggles Fall in Love. Which actually, in the human realm, that is the sort of saving grace, is that ability to feel that poignancy, that tenderness is kind of what connects everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah. But and then the question after that is what meanings do you attach to that? Nothing that's going to take you out of the moment quicker than falling in love. It's like having lots of money. The moment you get a big paycheck, it's like, well, where do I put it? How can I keep it? And it's the same with anything precious. Where do I keep it? How can I keep it safe? How can I make sure it's eternal? It never decays. And it's the same with the relationship. Oh, you're finding someone else attractive. Is this beautiful thing that's making me feel safe going to be taken away? Am I safe? Am I safe without you? Suddenly whatever you have that's precious, part of us wants to keep and be immune to the immutable laws of everything changes. So it's even getting it is another trap.
Well, that's very pure Buddhism, what you're saying right there.
I know, he steals all my ideas.
What's that?
Buddha steals all my ideas.
That attachment and ignorance create the ground of the suffering.
Yeah, so don't
ignoring impermanence. In what's being ignored is impermanence, and that you can't grasp it.
Yeah.
So that's but it's point. There's something about it that is so human at the same time. Do you feel that?
Totally. And I want to really honor my humanity. Like I stroke my chest and I go, hello, old friend. Here we go. Like, just like, everybody's a 3-year-old. And the way to treat a 3-year-old is, constant encouragement. No exasperation. No point getting exasperated with a 3-year-old. It's not their problem. It's your problem. Ramdas talks about this. Recently, I saw a thing where he talks about the spiritual journey or whatever he was talking about. He was saying, these are the stages: is you fall on your face, you stand up, you dust yourself down, you look sheepishly at God, you carry on. You fall on your face, you get up, you dust yourself down, you look sheepishly at God, you carry on. And that's the cycle.
Yeah. So this is, there's going to be another retreat in December at Maui. And, we're registered to go. I'm playing with KD at it, but it's going to be poignant.
Yeah.
The first one without him. Even just he was not sort of saying a lot and doing a lot at the last couple of them. He was sort of starting to dissolve into the ether, even as we were looking at him. But I could see a tender moment there coming up if this happens.
The funny thing, when I heard that he passed, when they called me the next morning, because I was asleep in England when it happened, my first experience was joy. And I'm not saying that to sound spiritual, like when my dad died very suddenly, my first experience was, oh, okay. But like the first thing I felt, like it's like I saw his face when they told me, because everyone knew that it was imminent. I saw his face a little bit like the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. Like the Cheshire Cat dissolved, but the grin remained.
The smile without a face.
Yeah, so like I could just see his grinning mouth, even though everything else had gone. The grinning mouth would never go. And I kind of saw him like running into Maharashi's arms across the lovely Golden Bridge, and like returning, letting go of all those old man pains and his aching feet that he didn't like, and his cold toes, and his, being free from all those bodily things, and just having that beautiful reunion with his mother and with Maharaji. And like, I just thought, oh yeah, great. If we believe that the spirit goes on, then his death was a wonderful thing. Like he'd done enough. He was old. He was hitting 90.
Well, and he talked about it, I think, in your film, about the death being like a shoe that's too tight.
Yeah,
and you're taking off an old shoe. I've been thinking about that for the last couple of days, actually, since I rewatched the film. I had seen it before, but I wanted to tune into it. And that stuck with me because, there's a lot of panic when you think about death and kind of groundless experience.
Depends who's thinking.
Yeah. It could be, your gut could be churning up too. I mean, there could be a lot of evidentiary aspects to it. And he did really have a long and winding road back into that. Not everybody gets that. They sometimes, they have to kind of hurry up and die. He took a good long time, and he had everybody. He was sort of leading the way, I think, for how you might want to approach that experience.
Yeah, I mean, in Becoming Nobody is the only movie that really talks about death so candidly. It's amazing. There isn't really any. There's the grief walker guy, who I've forgotten his name. Die Wise was the book that he wrote, and there's a lovely film about him called Grief Walker. He's a super guy. But there's very, very little out there where anyone can actually. And a lot of people write to me after Becoming Nobody going, "Oh, my dad just died. This film's helped so much." Or, my mum's dying, so we all watch the movie together. Like it really is the movie to get if someone's just died or someone's dying.
Well, I studied with Trungpa Rinpoche. That was my teacher. No
way.
Yeah.
You hung out with him?
Oh, I was a close student of his starting in 1970.
Wow. So you would have been hanging out with Pema as well? Were you friends?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And
you lucky thing. I'm jealous. Wow. That must have been so great.
Well, and it's part of the work I'm doing now is just following through on that. But it started in 1970 when he first got here. And then there was this crossover with Ramdas, So those worlds were back then were sort of like I remember Ramdas from Karma Chuling Meditation Center up in Vermont. One of the first workshops Rinpoche gave there, Ramdas was there. And so this was a kind of coming around full. Now, I didn't have a lot to do with him in the in-between time with Ram Dass, but then with Krishna Das, all of a sudden, the last 10 years, I've been hanging out with Ram Dass. And it was like the completion of a circle because we all started together. So, but Trungpa Rinpoche, obviously the Buddhists, particularly the Tantric Buddhists, are going to talk about death quite a bit. And Trungpa Rinpoche, when he passed away, he was sitting up in samadhi for about 7 days after that. And he shared that with his close students. So we saw that.
Wow, amazing.
And so, I've had...
Sorry,
say it again?
The death section of Becoming Nobody, which is about the last 23 minutes of the movie, was an hour long. I was told twice by everybody that I had to shorten the death part. So it was about there was another half an hour.
Some guy with a cigar in a Hollywood office. And let's shorten up on that death part.
Too much death. The death section was an hour of the film. And it had to be reduced to 23 minutes. There's half an hour of primo death edit that got cut from that film. It's funny that one of the titles I wanted to call the movie, because originally it was called Walking Each Other Home, but then the making of the movie, Ram Dass released a book called Walking Each Other Home, so they said we don't want to call it that anymore. So we were thinking of titles, and the title I wanted to go with was Famous Last Words.
Yeah, the death. Can we cut down on that death business there a little bit at the end? That's just super beautiful, funny. Of course, he was a great example of somebody who died very openly and shared that experience with a lot of people. Yeah, that's kind of not that common.
No, it's like the
you get to partake in it. Yeah, it's really. And there were pictures of him the day before and stuff. And he was quite luminous, Ram Dass, He really looked like he was easing out into it. And, there's something in the Buddhist tradition that Trungpa Rinpoche talked about, where part of what happens to a body when the person dies is there's a kind of loss of ground. Obviously, you're losing that really very familiar ground. And there's a kind of panic, and that's what rigor mortis is. He told us. So in other words, the body is just kind of seizing up like this. And when a realized person dies, the body just relaxes. The heart center, with Karmapa died, the heart center was soft for a long time. Rinpoche for days, soft heart center. And the rigor mortis.
They said the same.
Yeah, it's because the being in there is not freaking out and panicking, basically. So the instruction is kind of don't panic. Which is really good instruction.
Like Emmanuel says, dying, tell them, Ram Dass, dying is absolutely safe.
Well, if it's safe unless you panic, and then and that's true of living too, wouldn't you say?
I still think that it's safe either way. Like my dad died very violently and by his own hand. And there are a lot of spiritual people, Christians and even Buddhists, that say, when that happens, they go to this place where the spirit is lost. And I think, fuck those people. Because I believe in a compassionate God, or a compassionate system. And if somebody killed themselves, that means that the angel at the well of pain that we all bring our bucket of pain to process on behalf of the whole human race to earth didn't pay attention when that guy came through, and they took too much. And I think the first thing that a spirit gets if it killed itself is an apology and a beautiful hospital for the spirit where their wounds are tended to by gorgeous angels, and they're kind of put back on, go to a beautiful kind of rehab, and they're looked after beautifully. This weird Christian Buddhist notion that they go to a lost in-between place where the spirit is, it doesn't know who it is because it left on a note. I say fuck those people. I think they're just like still chucked. They're still stuck in a judgmental, not getting it paradigm. And I think that's where a lot of Buddhism, Christianity, and all those things fall down horribly, is they don't realize that at the end of the day, love, it's all made of love. And there's no way, if there's any level of consciousness, that a spirit that has suffered enough to end its own life goes anywhere but a beautiful hospital where it gets looked after and its wounds tended to and gets a special kind of rehab.
Jamie, you and I have a lot in common. It's kind of intriguing to me. My father also committed suicide.
Sorry.
That's an unusual thing to say, but I that's quite a powerful experience to go through.
Well, as a guy, it is, because we all kind of unconsciously think that we're plotting the same path as our father. So, like, my dad, like, he did it at age 64. So, like, 64 is a year for me. Like, am I going to get past?
Oh, I had that because my dad did it at 68 and I'm 73.
Yeah. So when you were 68, did you not? Think,
it played through a little bit like, I'm now walking on fresh snow. Is a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to do that in any case with your parents. It's not just temporal, but you have to walk on fresh snow because your parents just set you up and then you got to take the rest of the journey. Yeah. But I can see how old are you? You're in your 50s or so?
Next week, I'm going to be 53.
Okay. So you've got a while to contemplate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about your dad, but in my dad's case, there was a lot of physical pain. He had Parkinson's disease, very advanced, and it was sort of a releasing from a very painful physical situation.
More dignified. Yeah, my dad's thing was more like he built his castles on sand, and when they all dissolved, he hadn't connected to anything that was left that was real, and that was he hadn't really connected with his kids or his grandkids, and so like when he lost his sort of wealth and his standing, he didn't, in his model, he didn't have anything left.
Well, and your view is so different because you're saying none of that really matters. Like you've been saying that the whole time. Which is
what we all told him on the day he died. He rang me, he rang my brother, he rang my sister, and we all were in different countries. And we all said exactly the same thing to him. We said, Dad, we love you. Just come and live with us. We're doing fine. No one wants any money from you. No one needs anything from you. Just come and be the granddad. The kids might crawl on you a couple of times, but no one needs anything from you. Just come and be with us. We'd love to have you. And we didn't know we'd all said that. We all afterwards said, wow, that's exactly what I said to him. All three of us said, come and live with us and just hang out. We don't need anything. We've got plenty of food and a nice room for you and the kids and a lovely, and but it just didn't compute for him. Like his model couldn't find value in that.
Wow. Jamie, that's deep. Yeah. And but the flip side is you got the message through his life example. In a way, you realized that wasn't what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, I love being a big shot like the next person. Don't get me wrong. I do love swaggering around and having money in my wallet. I love to be the guy that paid for dinner for everybody. And, I do like people to see me as somebody who was successful out of crazy ideas out of my head, who never had to have a job. I feel quite proud of that, maybe not in a very healthy way. But I don't think, I hope I'm not asking for trouble here, but I don't think I'm basing my core value on that. But I do like the thrill. Like I used to be in a group called Faithless, which was in Europe, was a super successful band in the late 90s. We were like number one everywhere for about 4 years. And we used to have a motto, because it was a Buddhist group. The rapper was a Nichtern Daishonin Buddhist. Oh. Yeah, and Nam-myoho Renge Kyo chanting every day, twice a day, Buddhist. All the lyrics, all the raps are Buddhism. If you get the Reverence album, you'll love the lyrics. It'll blow your mind. So eloquent, so lyrical and incredible and beautifully delivered lyrics, very positive. And but we were like cameras flashing wherever we got off the tour bus, and concerts to 50,000, 80,000, we were big. And we used to have a motto which was thrilling, not meaningful. But just because it's not what you base your core value in,
sure,
it doesn't mean you can't enjoy the ego trip of everyone thinking you're great and calling your name. Sure. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Go and have a really good ego trip and love it. Just see it for what it is. But have the thrill when you walk out on stage and everyone's screaming, or you're number one in the charts and everyone wants to give you a platinum record. Like, enjoy that, but just don't make that what makes life important.
Wow. I just had a flash memory of when I got a gold record for Midnight at the Oasis, and I was on a 1-month retreat up in Northern California, and Trungpa Rinpoche came, and I was reading that, students for these
That's
kind of
not
people.
where you want to be when you get your gold record, because Trungpa Rinpoche is going to come and ruin it for you.
Well, he didn't ruin it. Actually, I found it enhancing, but here's what happened. So I heard that, it's traditional in Tibet, you give gold to your teacher, in exchange for the teaching. So I thought, I have a gold record here. Of course, it was just a piece of plastic. It was a gold plating. But so I offered it to him, and he took it, and then he used it as a tray to serve drinks on.
Brilliant.
So that was a great moment. I felt very good about that, though. I mean, that was incredible. Yeah, it was an incredible way of those things coming together in a way I could relate to. But I do find sometimes spiritual people I'm happy to hear you saying this, because sometimes the quote unquote spiritual community is kind of almost averse to celebration, to worldly, they see it as like a trap,
They're the same people who are beating themselves up for being human. They're the same people that look at their failure as failure. They're the same people who think they should be evolving faster. They're the same people who give themselves a hard time when they didn't do enough yoga this week. It's all denying their humanity. That's my judgment anyway, and I own it. But, like Ram Dass was very clear about, don't deny your humanity. Stop trying to be so holy all the time. You've taken a human incarnation. How about being a human? And being a human includes feeling needy and greedy sometimes. It includes feeling thrilled because everyone gave you positive feedback. It includes, that's all part of being a human. If you can, like the Rudyard Kipling, if you can keep your head, that poem, if you can enjoy it all, experience it all, but not be attracted or repelling. So what you're talking about is people repelling it.
Yeah.
If you're pushing it away, as Ram Dass says, it's still got you. It's neither attracted nor repulsed. It's like, I can go and be a pop star. I'm not running after it going, my life only has meaning when I'm a pop star, but neither am I pushing it away going, I'm not a pop star. I'm much more holy than that. That's just as much of a trap. Just be right in the middle. Go, I had a fucking good time. I probably, could have done a lot more drugs and womanizing than I did. That might be one of my regrets on my deathbed. I kind of held off. I didn't barely do any drugs or womanizing during my prime, when I really could. I could have really done it all, and I regret that I didn't. I could, I think that's one of my only regrets. I could have really gone over the top there.
Well, there's still time, I'm happy to report.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's aging is not what you think it is. I'll just put it in those terms.
I know. Believe me, I'm already into it. Don't worry. I look myself in the mirror. I forgot my father's hands. I mean, the lucky thing is I've never been a drinker. I don't know if it's a Jewish thing, but certain Jewish people just can't drink alcohol. I'm one of them. Like one sip of a glass of wine and it's like equivalent half a bottle for someone else. Like I'm drunk. Yeah. So I've got this pristine liver. I have not touched my liver. So I'm thinking of making a start on it and developing some immunity, some, what do you call it? Not immunity, like when you have resistance, you get used to something. I was thinking of trying getting into alcohol. Like I've never done that. So I've got an absolutely untouched liver. It might be time to try that.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, Jamie's liver.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed meeting you.
Likewise. And I feel like we could spiral on. I just want to ask you, what is your favorite way for people to say your last name? Because I've heard a couple of different takes on it.
Catto. Yeah.
Catto. Like Gatto with, that's what I would have thought. But
my granddad was called Finkel. He was a famous author in his day in the 40s and 50s. A lot of his books got made into Hollywood boom movies. And he was worried that having such a Jewish name would get in the way of his career.
Because Gatto is Italian, isn't it? Sort of more?
Yeah, so he was just walking down the street and he saw a chemist, a pharmacy lorry go past, Catto chemists from Scotland. He went, that looks good. He changed his name.
That's so illuminating because, I thought, well, that's kind of an Italian name. But there you go, Jamie Finkel.
Jaime Finkel at your service. My friend said that my film company should muzzle off manifestations.
Well, I think this is even a better note to end the podcast on. So
Wonderful.
Is there anything that you want to let people out there who are listening know about, or,
Well, I mean, come to my website if you ever want to join in on anything. No one's ever turned away for money reasons, jamiecatto.com. But above all, please just really, really, really watch your self-talk. That's, if you're not going to do anything else, really keep an eye on your self-talk. If you're talking to yourself in an exasperated way or an angry way or a sort of passive-aggressive, oh, I really thought I was past this stuff, then it means you're asleep.
Yeah.
If you're treating yourself in any other way other than rubbing your chest and going, oh, you're lovely. If you're doing anything other than treating yourself with absolute sweetness and adoration and like sort of allowing yourself all your failures, perceived failures, as more adorable than the last, then it means you're asleep. So just, if you're not going to do anything else for the planet, please really keep an eye on your self-talk and sweeten it whenever you possibly can.
What a lovely prescription. Thank you so much. And it was really nice to meet you and get to know you a little bit. And I hope it's not the last time.
Let's stay in touch. I'll send my WhatsApp deets to your email and let's be friends.
Okay, Jamie. Have a wonderful evening. Okay. Take good care.
Well, there you have it, folks. Episode number 23 of the Creativity, Spirituality, and Making a Buck podcast. We sincerely hope that you've enjoyed listening to it as much as we have enjoyed making it. I know for me personally, that last little nugget that Jamie shared about treating ourselves gently with our perceived failures and self-talk really came in handy when I was recording the intro as, how do you pronounce excerpt? Excerpt? Excerpt. How do you put that P right next to the T without having it kind of snap all over the voiceover on the microphone? Anyway, I'll continue exploring these questions on my own journey, and I hope you continue exploring your questions and your journey with mindfulness and gentleness. As always, if you like what you hear here and are interested in exploring further and potentially joining us in community, studying and practicing together, head over to dharmamoon.com, where you can see our full listing of upcoming program. We have mindfulness meditation teacher trainings running all year, as well as new programming for Foundations of Mindfulness if you don't want to take that big leap into being a teacher and you just like to deepen your own practice. Also, big thank you to Melissa Nichtern, our co-producer, and everyone at the Be Here Now Network. If you appreciate this podcast, thank you. We encourage you to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider and leave a positive review, as it helps us help you. So, that concludes episode number 23. Thank you for listening. May you be safe, healthy, happy, and at ease. All the best.